Hello, and welcome to the Create a Life You Love podcast. I'm your host, Chantel Cox. My purpose is to empower and lift up others who know in their heart they're meant for more. More joy, more impact, and more passion. If you're ready to make a radical transformation and create a life that you love, then you have come to the right place. Let's do this. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Create a Life You Love video podcast, where we get to connect with people from all over the world to share tips and strategies designed to help you on your journey. I'm your host, Chantel Cox. I'm an author, speaker, transformation neurocoach, and certified life purpose coach who helps women connect with their unique purpose and permanently remove the blocks that have been holding them back so they can step into their full potential and live an aligned and fulfilling life of impact. Reminder, this is being streamed live, so those of you with us, feel free to put comments and questions in the chat and we will get to them as it makes sense in the flow of our conversation. If you're catching the replay, feel free to interact as if you were with us live. Just use hashtag replay and we will be sure to respond to you later. All right, let's get going. So I'm super excited to be here today with Candice Smiley. Candice is a self-proclaimed master manifestor and personal development junkie who loves to engage in interesting conversations with other women, influencers, and entrepreneurs. Her favorite conversations are the ones that take courage to engage in. And she spends time living in her adorable tiny home, which she's located in right now. And she travels with her family and does speaking engagements on her podcasts and on various stages where she shares candidly with other women how to find love after betrayal, how to trust themselves, how to speak up for themselves, and how to set powerful boundaries. So, hello, Candice. How are you today?
I am so good. It's so much fun to be hanging out with you today.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, where are you joining us from?
I'm currently in the tiny house right now. So it's in the middle of nowhere in Alberta, Canada. So it's kind of fun. And yeah, I'm in 250 square feet, which was one of my dreams to shrink my life so that I could live so much bigger. And so, yeah, that's where I'm coming to you from today.
I love that. It's just so cool.
Right?
It's so yeah. So you had this vision and you made it happen, and
I
that's
did.
so powerful.
Hmm.
Um, Tell us a little bit about your journey to create a life you love. What's led you to this tiny home life where you get to speak out on these amazing topics?
Right. Well, honestly, it was because I went through quite a few traumas in my life. I had an amazing childhood, to be completely honest, but I'm really grateful for because I think it gave me just an amazing space to grow from. And then at 17, I was sexually assaulted by a gentleman who I would end up being like was my boyfriend for, and I stayed with him for over 2 years. And that sort of led me into a few more other bad decisions because I was really walking wounded at that point. I didn't know how to talk about what had happened. I didn't know how to frame it. I just knew something was off, and I was now, hurting and not sure how to deal with that. And so you can fast forward. I'm sure we'll talk about more of the story, but I mean, when you are walking wounded like that, you become a magnet for other people that are looking to sometimes not unintentionally, but definitely, they're not necessarily aware. And so a lot more grief and injury occurred through various circumstances. I got left with $350,000 worth of debt. I got left after people cheated on me with multiple people, and I knew it. Like that's the thing, my podcast is called Create the Ripple, and the tagline is Trust the Niggle, Tell the Truth. And it's because I knew when the dude wasn't good for me, right? I knew that the business decision wasn't the right call. I knew those things, and either I didn't know how to express them or honor those feelings within myself. And I certainly didn't know how to tell myself the truth of that because that can be really hard. And so in 2020, when the world shut down, I finally felt like I had some time to do some deep healing work. I've been promising myself since I was 17 that I would stop at some point and do the hard work. And I emerged after 14 weeks of healing. Missed the first major shutdown that we had up here. So it was a little bit interesting. I emerged. I'm like, oh, the world's a different place. And they're like, where have you been? I said, healing. But because of that, emerged and knew what I wanted. And I was starting over scratch with my she was 6 at the time, my 6-year-old daughter, and we needed a place to sort of rest and recover and get my feet back underneath me. But how do you do that when you're a single mom, when, housing up here is crazy? Anyway, long story short, I'd been looking at the tiny house movement for a while. And so it was an easy fit for me to find something. I'd been shrinking my life for a while. When I realized I needed to leave my marriage because I knew I needed to be able to travel light, I expected it might be a challenge to get some financial support, that sort of thing. And so the shrinking has been going on for a while. But I now live in 250 square feet with myself, my daughter. I have a newborn son, and now my new partner, and all four of us fit in here just fine. Yeah, do we trip over each other? Yeah, we do. But to be honest, we've shrunk our lives so that we can live so much bigger in other ways and spaces. Especially when you're parents with young kids, the money goes out the door pretty fast. And so we're able to save more so we can live more on purpose. So that's how I ended up here.
I love that. And when you say you like re-emerged after your healing journey, like where did you go? What did that look like?
My parents' basement. And I'm sharing that very candidly because I know that there are women out there who, yes, it did feel like I was going backwards. I was, it was my 36th birthday. I celebrated while I was in the middle of that healing, and I felt like such a failure. I also felt freer than I had. I felt more relief than I had because I was acknowledging to myself what had happened. I was acknowledging a lot of it. I really piled on the guilt and the shame for so many years that I was sort of just coming to this place of being like, you know what, it changed you. And that's okay. It's okay to grieve the life that you don't have anymore, the life that you wanted that you don't have, to say, wow, I'm 36 and I'm back in my parents' basement. I won't be here long, but I'm here and it sucks. But basically, because everybody had shut down with the pandemic, I was able to get in to see an amazing psychiatrist. Saw her every Monday. I was seeing a feminine balance coach on Thursdays, and she was helping me to sort of rediscover, parts of myself that I'd really locked up because I'd been living way more to my masculine energy than my feminine energy for so long because felt like I had to protect myself. So it was sort of a rediscovering who I was. And then pretty much everybody else I knew who had some sort of a healing modality, transformational coach, you name it. I was calling them, messaging them and saying, hey, bet you're not busy right now. I could totally use some therapy. And so that was really quite wonderful to lean into my network. And so many people were willing to help, offer, one or many sessions. And it was actually a really powerful experience. And then when I crawled out, I was encouraged to go and try something new. So I discovered backcountry camping. While I was discovering backcountry camping, that's when I met my partner. And for the first time, I wasn't walking wounded anymore. I was walking very open. So the first time we hung out just as friends, I said, stay far away, right? I wasn't saying, hey, I'm wounded, which I had in the past, right? Like, hey, I've been sexually assaulted. So there might be some challenges when we're being intimate. I was showing up and saying things like, hey, I've just emerged from 14 weeks of healing. I don't know who I am yet. Yes, I think you're cute. Thank you so much for the attention, but I don't know what I want or what I need. So if you're cool to hang out and give me tons of space and let me figure out this, and wouldn't you know it, I attracted a beautiful person who responded and said, wow, that's so honest. And yeah, I totally respect it. And here's my trauma story. And, we spent 3 months just getting to know each other, backcountry camping, which I think is a great way to get to know somebody. And then, emerged after that and said, you know what, this works, which is quite kind of fun to talk about now.
Yeah, that's so awesome that you were able to recognize that in yourself and then share it and not be worried about, is this going to scare this person off? Like you were okay with that. You were
Dude,
like,
if he was going to be scared, I wanted him to go now.
yeah, no, that's
Because
awesome.
by that point I'd realized, I was 37 and I wanted more kids. And so, tick, 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 right? I'd already decided that if I didn't have, a significant masculine partner, I would just, do it myself and set myself up with a couple of great girlfriends who said, hey, you know what, we'll support you. We'll help you as much as we can. We get, because I hadn't been honest with myself for so long about so many things, not just what the bad things that I'd been ignoring that had happened and buried. It was also the other things. Like, I want more children. I want to do this with my life. I want to do that. Like, it was also the good things. And so for me, it was like, I have no idea how to do me well. So I'm going to show up and be totally messy, totally awkward, totally not myself. And you know what, to be honest, most people have responded with, wow, that's so cool. And they lean in. And I want other women to know that. Like, if they're not leaning in, they're not your people. Because if
Right.
they're leaning in, they're like, dude, that's amazing. Tell me more about that scar. How did you heal that? And I think that's really important.
Absolutely. I love too how you hit on, it was your birthday and you're kind of like gone backwards in life. So you allowed yourself those grieving emotions of you are grieving the loss of the future you thought you were building, and at the same time feeling free and feeling like you can heal yourself and have the space to do that. And I think it's so important that we don't have to live in the this or that. It can be this
Mhm.
and that. There's
Yes.
room for all of it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Agree totally. And I share it because I know that there were some thoughts I had in my head, and I'm sure in other women's minds. And one of them was, I can distinctly remember where I was when I was thinking about it. And I was like lamenting the fact that I didn't have the life I'd planned, right? Like all the way back to 17. Like I went all the way back, as hard as that was. And I was like, this grief changed me. And I didn't realize, but I'd been resisting accepting that. And I went, you know what? I just got to let that go. Like, I am not who I thought I was going to be. Life hasn't gone the way I thought it was going to go. That's my fault. That's not my fault. That's all of this. And I just need to sit with how awful that makes me feel. And it was interesting because as soon as I like acknowledged that and like cried, the tears went from that, ugly cry to like this relief cry. It was like I gave myself permission to say, that was effed and it's okay, you're okay. And I was like, wow, I may actually be able to move through this now because I've come to that point. And so, I'm passionate now about sharing that with women. Like, go to the ugly cry place. It's okay. And if you can't go there by yourself, then don't. I had a ton of people that they knew I was going through something. I would reach out and I'd call and I couldn't even speak. You know what it's like when you call a friend and you can't, you're so upset, you're in such grief that you can't speak. And those people would just say, hey, I'm here. If you just need to cry on the phone, I'm going to sit here with you as long as they need to. And I can clearly remember how powerful that was. And I remember to myself, it's not about always having the right thing to say because I didn't need anybody to say anything. I just needed them to sit there with me while I ugly cried.
Right.
And then if I was like, okay, I got to go, they were like, okay, love you. And so I share that because it's okay to be there. You won't stay there. But if you don't go there, I don't think you can really move forward like to where I am now, right? Like I look at my little 4-month-old and he's just trying to figure out how to make his hands work and put things in his mouth. And I don't think I've laughed with as much joy as I am now. And I think, wow, I would have missed this if I hadn't gone through the really awful stuff to get to the place where I'm just totally at peace with who I am and where I am today.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
And yeah, reaching out to those people. You have your friends and your family, but then you
Mhm.
also were getting therapy and counseling and coaching and just
Yep.
tackling in any resource. You're like, help me out. Like
Help.
we do not have to do this alone.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, for the audience who's here with us listening
Mhm.
live or in the replay or podcast, what tips would you have for them as they're on this journey to create a life that they love?
Well, number one, it's not going to be a fast journey. And I really think that that's important that they know it's not pretty. It really isn't. And I think that one of the biggest gifts I gave myself is I knew it was going to take time. I knew that it would be bad for a little while. And so just like the song says, right, if you're going to go through hell, just go straight through it, right? Don't stop. Just keep going. You'll get out eventually. But lean into that, right? If it sucks and you feel really awful, stay in the awful, because I think we have a tendency, especially in today's day and age, we can change things so fast. We can move out of things. We want it to be overnight, and it's not overnight, right? Like 14 weeks doesn't sound like a lot of time, but I tell you, when I was in the middle of it, it was bad. Like it was really, really bad. I was really blessed that I was at home. I had supportive parents. So I did have that. They knew. I said, I came home. I said, I'm not me. I need some time to do me. I need some time to heal. And they said, whatever you need will. So, I mean, I would get up some days and my daughter, who's, 6, was just like, Mommy, are you okay? And I said, Mommy is just sad. I didn't want to hide that from her. I said, I love you. I'm present for you, but mommy's got some stuff that she needs to cry about. And she would say things like, I get it, mommy. Sometimes I get a boo-boo. I needed to cry too. And I'm like, exactly. Right. So I let her see my emotions, because I don't think we serve our daughters if we don't show them the depth of our emotions. Right. How happy I knew I would be one day and how unhappy I was in that moment. And sometimes that meant I just went back to bed. And I went for a lot of long walks. I journal. That's always been something for me. I couldn't talk about the assault for so many years, but I did write about it. I wrote about it in a place where only I could, see that. And I was honest with myself, and I gave myself the gift of time. And so I talk about that a lot, when I was leaving my marriage, um, and realized I needed to leave my marriage. I told myself that truth first, and then that felt so overwhelming that I first started to focus on getting healthy, because it was shortly after my daughter was born when I realized this. And it took me 2.5 years before I found the courage to leave that relationship. And I always kind of was upset with myself for not having enough strength to leave when I first made the decision. But looking back on it now, I realized I needed that time to heal. I needed that time to figure out my plan. I needed that time to, I needed to lose a little bit of weight so I had a little more energy. Like, for me, that was so important. And I didn't realize the gift of time, but now I talk about it a lot, because I don't want the woman who's sitting there thinking, well, I know I need to leave, I just don't know how. That's great. Celebrate yourself for knowing that you need to leave or make a change or whatever that is. The I don't know is okay. It's an okay place to be. Be in the I don't know what's next. And I'm an A-type personality who loves to control everything. So yes, I know what I'm asking you and how hard it is. But when you can get to that place, you open yourself up to opportunities. Then you will meet people. You will figure it out. And like I said, for me, it took me 2.5 years. And then I didn't even tell him then that I was leaving. I said, I'm going to go and travel with my daughter for 3 or 4 months, which wasn't uncommon for me to do. I said I was chasing another career. I made some changes and they were subtle. And it took me almost 4 years before I sat him down to say, this isn't working and it's not working. So don't beat yourself up if it takes you a really long time to come to that place where you know what you want and can express it. But at least be honest with yourself, because I'd been honest with myself from the beginning. This isn't working. I don't know what I'm going to do next. Does that make sense? And so I really want a woman who's listening to be like, give yourself some grace, girlfriend. Life is hard. Choose your hard, but give yourself some grace as you are.
Oh, I love that so much. We put so many shoulds on ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and we think other people are putting them on us. But then
Mm-hmm.
when you really start having the conversations,
Yeah.
like when I was going through my journey and I was, sheepishly telling like a friend or a family member or something what was happening and what, like, I was so scared of being judged and ridiculed and like all these terrible things that did not happen. I
Oh,
was met with love and how can I
I know.
help? And
Right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Totally.
um, so a word that you use a lot is niggle. You said trust the
Yes.
niggle. And so tell me, like, where does that word originate? I've not heard of it before. Is that something you created or?
No, I read it and I loved it when someone said it's kind of like that niggle. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Because it's always, at least in my case, it's always an inconvenient truth. It's that thing that and you're like, darn it. Right? Because you're really excited to go on this date with this person. And then you're like, but I don't feel safe. And I don't know why I don't feel safe. You really want to move forward with your business. You really want to take that trip. You really want to do something. The niggle can also be a positive thing. It can be that nudge that says, it is your time to step out, even though you're scared and you don't have all the details, right? It is time for you to say, I want to have more kids, or hey, I'd like to take a relationship to the next level. It's just always an inconvenient truth that requires change. And sometimes when I ignored the niggle, I was doing so deliberately, right? Giving it the middle finger and saying, screw you, I'm going to do my own thing, come
Right.
what may. And sometimes it was because I didn't have the words, or my logical brain was saying, I don't have an actual reason for why you feel this person's not good for you. Right. And we have to, I don't know that we're ever taught that we should trust our gut, right? We're not really, it's sort of like woo woo, but I think it is so much more. And especially for us women. And then because if we don't trust it and then we end up in trouble, we don't know how to get ourselves out. right? We've already broken our word and our trust with ourselves because we didn't listen to the niggle in the first place. And then it just kind of goes down there from here, right? And I think that the more we talk about that, and the more that we talk about the fact that most of us are ignoring that little voice anyway. Like I saw a boundaries, it's a meme. It was a meme somebody sent me yesterday. And they said, do what's best for you. That was the D of boundaries. Do what's best for you. And I said, why is that one so hard for me? Even now, today, right? When I'm working with clients and I'm giving them a quote, am I giving them the quote that's best for me? Like, do what's best for you, not what's best for the other person. Not that I'm, we all want to help somebody, but do what's best for you and then express it, right? So I want to share that too, that this is an ongoing challenge for me to sit back and go, wow, I'm still doing this thing, even though I'm no longer attracting, a romantic partner who's putting me in positions. It doesn't mean I'm not attracting friends or other people where I realize, wow, I have to put up a boundary here. And that means, am I doing what's good for me? Because if I'm doing what's good for me, then I can give from the overflow of my cup, not the empty of my cup, the overflow. And I think that's really important for women. If you're feeling empty, then it's likely that your boundaries don't exist or they've been pushed back. And it is really hard when you have to grab your boundary. I know I had to do it this week. Grab your boundary and drag it back to where it needs to be and say, hey, I didn't listen to myself when it said I shouldn't say yes. And so now I have to say no and go back on my word because I have integrity first with myself. And if I'm out of integrity with myself, then I have to have a conversation with you to say, hey, this doesn't work for me. I don't know what the new relationship looks like, but what we're currently doing doesn't work for me.
Yeah. So, if somebody gets to that point or is on the verge of that point, do you have any tips or recommendations that would help them get all the way there or do that?
Um, yeah, it's just hard work. Like, and I mean, I say that because I mean, I know we all want it to be simple, but I think we all intuitively know that, right? Like there's a niggle inside that says you got what you know what you need to do. And if you don't, then just sit with it for a bit. And usually like one of my favorite lines is, what are you pretending not to know? And the first time I heard it, I was in a personal development course and they had it up on the wall. What are you pretending not to know? And it was like really little. And then throughout the weekend, they grew, like they put it in bigger and bigger and bigger writing on the wall. So it was like screaming at you. And I often think about that with the niggle. It's like, what are you pretending not to know? Because, well, I don't know how to leave. Yeah, you do. You just don't want to because it's going to require change. It's going to require work. It's going to require tough conversations. And I've tried to learn to fall in love with the conversations that take courage, right? Living a life with great boundaries takes a lot of courage because you're going to disappoint people. But if you're disappointing anybody, it has to be the other people. It can't be you.
Mm,
And that's not a new thought, but I think too often, even myself as a mom, as a woman, right? Like I immediately think, okay, I've just submitted this, proposal, or I've just said, hey, this doesn't work for me, or hey, I really need to change this plan. I mean, I had a friend today who messaged and she said, can you help me out with this marketing thing? And I said, yeah, I want to help her, right? I want to support her in her stepping out. And then the other part of me went, whoa, 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 do you have time to help her today? Is that serving you today? And I was like, actually, no, I have like literally a half an hour before I got to get the kids, onto supper. And so if I say yes to her as much as I love her and want to help her, right now isn't awesome. And so I said, you know what? Today actually is not good. Can we do it later? So I'm saying to people, it's okay to say yes enthusiastically and then go, oh, wait, hang on, hang on, hang on, hang on. And I've learned that even if that's messy, and it is messy when you're working on boundaries and figuring out what they look like, be in the mess and be willing to say, hey, I'm sorry, this is messy. I didn't think it all the way through. I need to move this here. So no guilt, no shame, just call it out, call it what it is. And if you're living out, operating out of truth, most people respond and go, oh yeah, sure, no worries, that's okay. Let's plan on this.
yeah. And when you do that, like, because I've been on the giving and receiving end of that conversation,
Yeah.
and it's terrifying being the one who's like, hey, here's my boundary. But
Yep.
when you are on the receiving end and somebody sets a boundary, you kind of like step back and you're like, yeah, get it.
Yeah.
Set that
Yep.
boundary. I
Yeah.
respect that.
Exactly.
Like,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's true. And honestly, ladies, it's a really, 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 really good thing if you're running to people who are setting boundaries with you, because it means that you're to the point where they feel safe enough to set boundaries with you. Like that's a good thing. You don't attract what you want, you attract who you are. So for me, when I start running into people that are like, well, this is my boundary and this is what I can do, I'm like, ah, look at me, I'm growing. So don't feel bad, right? I've got 21 years of not having great boundaries, and I can't expect 2 years in to be excellent at this at all times. I celebrate myself for recognizing, darn it, I moved the boundary. And the thing is, and you'd know this, Chantal, you move the boundary like this much
Right.
and they'll go this much. And then you're like, right? I feel like, okay, I drag the boundary back to where it needs to be and say, hey, this is where the boundary is, right? And you have to, there will be pushback, ladies. And so I think we do ourselves a disservice if we're not totally honest. And I think as women, we have a tendency to want to sugarcoat it. And I think that's why when people say, well, what do you do? I'm like, well, I'm going to tell you the truth. It sucks. Healing sucks. Okay. And it's totally worth it, because at the end, you've done the hard thing, and you'll have more courage to do other hard things. And you're already doing a hard thing. I think about when I was living in either a romantic relationship or had friendships that weren't supportive, or business relationships that weren't what they needed to be, and they were abusive to me. Even if they weren't abusive, even if the other person didn't mean it to be, but they were, because I hadn't set my boundary and stood by it. People will take what they can. That was also hard. That was more hard than doing the other thing. And I think it is about 38 seconds or something like that. The awful feeling that you feel, ladies, will only last 38 seconds.
Oh, okay.
You can handle it for like, don't quote me, but yeah, look it up. It's like 38 seconds when you get that hormone that hits and you feel really awful and you feel it in your body. 38 seconds, ladies, you can totally do it.
Nice.
And
That's
then you
good
will
to know.
start to feel better. So breathe through that, figure out your plan, take a minute, whatever you got to do, but 38 seconds.
That's huge. That's very empowering and a great way to like reframe it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, most of us can probably even hold a plank for 38 seconds if we really had to.
Maybe. And it might not even be that, but what I'm saying is it's a short amount of time. It's less than a minute when you're going to feel really awful. And so I think if we sugarcoat it and we don't be honest about, what, when you start to say no, it feels gross. Yes, yes, it does. And you'll get better at it. Right? I think that's really important, because I think when we as women, we can handle anything. It's right. It's if we know what we're actually walking into. At least I can anyway. Like tell me, tell me it's really bad. I can handle it then.
Yeah, I love it. Um, so prior to leaving your husband and kind of having this
Mm-hmm.
healing time, were you at all in the coaching space or have a podcast or anything? What did your life look like before? And then what made you step out and start sharing your story in this big way?
I've literally been stumbling my way through life. If I could figure out what I want to do when I grow up, I think I'd be really happy. I still don't know. I know that I'm really enjoying what I'm doing now, but I have never been crystal clear on what that was going to be. So I have dabbled in real estate, I've dabbled in event planning, I've dabbled in many different things. I think they were all parts of who I was, right? So I think now core values for me are communication, connection, collaboration. Those are things I just love to do. I like to be involved in good ideas. I want to connect. I want to, share. I'm a huge introvert. I love one-on-one conversations like this when it's just you and me. But get me into a big noisy place and I'm like, nope, sorry, peace out. So I think it was about coming to really understand. And I had done a lot of the decisions in my business life because somebody said I should. I learned how to be a better speaker because someone said I sucked. So I mean, a lot of those things I've sort of learned along the way. Um, but when the pandemic hit, to be completely honest with you, I felt a lot of clarity. And I know that for a lot of people, it was incredibly hurtful. So I said that very carefully. But for me, it was very eye opening. And I think part of it was um, I was going to networking events that I didn't want to go to. I had business colleagues that I didn't really enjoy, right? Because I knew their values or knew their ethics, or we are just misaligned, right? They're good people, but they're just not my people. Um, And so all of a sudden, I didn't have to be anywhere. I didn't have to go anywhere. I'd wanted to take my business online full time, whether it was coaching or writing or speaking for a very long time, but everybody said it couldn't be done. And then all of a sudden, it's the only thing we could do. And I remember laughing and thinking, what else have I been told that I can't do that I could totally do if I decided to? Right. And case in point, I've recently basically left Facebook. I've basically left Instagram, mostly because I'm like, I'm just not happy here. I don't have to figure out why. I don't have to have a reason. And I do have my reasons. I'm not going to get into them here. But it's just like, no. And then people will say, but then how are you going to build your business? And I'm like, look, all I know is if I'm called to not be here, that's a niggle. So maybe it means I need to learn a platform. Maybe it means I'm going to go back to the old way. I don't know. But all I'm learning is that if I don't trust that thing. So for example, I left Facebook in a big way. I still have the platform. I'm still involved in groups. I think that's great communication, connection, collaboration, right? But there's no more scroll. I'm not wasting any time. But when I deleted, and I had almost 5,000 friends,
Oh.
and I deleted them, and it took me days to do so because Facebook doesn't like it when you try to leave. But I deleted them all. And I cried and cried and cried like I had when I was healing. And I felt like I was shedding years and years and years and years. And it's true. I was seeing people as I was deleting them, like, oh, I didn't want that person in my life. Oh my goodness, no. Right. And I was like, how long have I been uncomfortable with being on this platform? And I had a multimedia company. And so at one point in my life, I loved Facebook. Okay. But at some point, it's shifted out of alignment. I outgrew it for me personally, for me. And I'd been ignoring that because I thought I needed it. I
Mm.
thought it had to be part of my life because somebody told me it did. And I freed it up. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, now I have more time, effort, and energy. And so I've shifted into writing blogs, which is what I love to do. I love writing. I've shifted into showing up in different ways. I had more energy, more zest, like less but better, which is an essentialist quality rather than a minimalist quality, which essentially is like what I'm doing at the tiny house. My tiny house is beautiful. And because it's small, we have to invest in it, right? So we're getting some storage put in behind us. We have the baby. We want to make a toddler bed. It's not going to be cheap because it has to fit into the space, right? We can't just buy something and go, bloop, there it is, right? I like that part. I like that we have to measure twice, cut once. I like that we have to think about it. I like that there's this less but better idea. And so I think that's been a big piece of it. So uh, I sort of have been following the thread. And so again, I'd say to somebody who's listening, if you're not sure, just follow the pull, follow the thread, follow the feeling that feels. For me, it's relief.
Mm.
So I've recently started writing my book. When I sit down to write, even if it's at 11 o'clock, when I finally get the kids in bed and the dishes done and all the other stuff, I feel so much relief. And if all I can get is 10 minutes, right, or 1,000 words, doesn't really matter. That is the best part of my day. And even if it's that little, I'm finding I'm waking up the next day with more energy and more focus because I'm taking the time to do at least one thing in my day that isn't just for me, right? It's bigger than self-care. It's like, this is the thing that if I do it will move my life forward, and I deserve to do that for myself. And so yeah, I'm still figuring it out, and I want other women to know that.
That's amazing. Yeah, I really love that spin on it, and like looking at it through that lens.
Mhm.
We have a couple comments on Facebook. We
Oh,
have
cool.
a great words. What are you pretending not to know?
Mhm.
And wow, 38 seconds. That's powerful. So,
Mhm.
yay.
Good.
Um,
Yay.
Anybody else that has comments, questions, anything, go ahead and throw them in the chat and we will get to them when it makes sense. Um, yes, you're just dropping so many like great like truth bombs.
Coffee. It's totally the coffee. No, I'm
It's
kidding.
the coffee. It's the coffee. I love it. Um, I've got my tea. It's not my normal loose leaf tea. It's like straight up Theraflu. I'm like, let's go.
Straight
We're
up
gonna
therapy.
power through. The show must go on. We're gonna make
The
this thing
show must
happen.
go on. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
um, okay. So for people that are watching, listening, and they're like, Candace is the bomb. How can they connect with you?
They can find me. Head over to my website. That's the easiest place to do it. I'm also on TikTok, and it's the same. It's CandiceSmiley.com, whether it's my website or my TikTok. That's where I'm choosing to show up right now. But you can follow along with the blogs. You can follow along with what I'm up to. Anything new that is exciting is there. Of course, I do things like post links to when I'm on other people's show, because again, connection, collaboration, connection. I think that's huge. um yeah, and I think that's where I'm going to be for the next little bit. I'm working, like I said, on a couple of books, so who knows what that will mean for speaking and opportunities, but you can always catch where I'm at and what I'm up to if you head over there.
I love that. And tell us the name of your podcast and a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So it's the Create the Ripple podcast. And the tagline is to trust the Niggle and tell the truth. So we have stories of people who have trusted the Niggle, right? And now they're living. So a lot of stories of trauma and healing and what people are doing, the telling of the truth, which I need people to know is not always about telling the truth to the world, because the world doesn't always deserve your truth, right? Not everybody, we live in a world, right? And Brene Brown brings this up that, not everybody deserves you to be as vulnerable as maybe you need to be. But you do. You deserve you to be honest with you, like really honest with you, because it's hard to live a life of integrity if you are not first and foremost in integrity with yourself. And I think that's a really missed point in today's day and age. We say live in integrity, and I'm like, yeah, but if you're lying to yourself, it's hard to live from a place that isn't there. So again, sometimes the podcasts are very much, sometimes they're me telling my truth, sometimes they're about sharing a place for other people to talk about the truth. So the conversations are often fairly hard hitting. But I really want people to walk away and think. I don't necessarily see myself as a coach. I know great coaches like yourself, and I love to do referrals, but I want to be a catalyst so someone can hear the story and go, wow, okay, I'd like to live in a place where even if I do think about wondering what the other person's going to think of me, I'm going to say my mind anyway. And
Mm,
that's where I want to come from.
yeah, I love that. Um, let's see, we've got more. It's just blowing up over here.
Mm.
Jen, who is another fabulous coach, I will get you guys connected. She says she'd love to connect. She's been telling me for several months she would not be hurt at all if her Facebook was just suddenly deleted. We were in Vegas together the day that Facebook and Instagram went offline, so it was kind of funny. Um, and
Right? The
then
whole world went, what?
I know. I'm like poolside trying to post a cute selfie, and I'm like, huh, I must not have good Wi Fi. And
I
then
know,
everyone around
right?
me is like, why is my
So
Facebook not
good.
working?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Oh, man. Um, and then Gloria, my mom, hey mom, says, I love the world doesn't deserve your truth, only trusted people. It's very powerful. Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I love to ask all of my guests if they have any daily non-negotiables.
And me. Um, lately it's been, so I have a newborn, of course, right? So my day is not always my own. But I'm learning to sort of meet myself where I'm at. And I think that's definitely a daily non-negotiable. I do tell myself the truth. I do learn to trust the niggle. Today I try to spend some quiet time. Today, of course, the kids didn't really let me have that, dedicated quiet time, but I'm learning that it's just as much fun to sit with them on my lap and do deep breathing with them. And so I think it's about connecting with me and making sure I'm listening and honoring the niggle and then figuring that out. And I know that's not necessarily, in a nice little box, but I think I'm sort of trying to meet myself exactly where I'm at, because that's what I'd like other people to do with me, right? The Four Agreements, a great book. I read it every year, a couple times a year. If you haven't read it, go get this book. It will change your life. And one of them is, always do your best, but you trust that your best may not be your best every day. And that's certainly big for me. Part of my story involves, some depression and, wanting to do some health self-harm. And so I'm very aware of those things, especially postpartum. And, but I don't beat myself up over those things. I'm going, yeah, but that's part of my brilliance. And so I'd really encourage the person who's listening, embrace those parts of yourself. For example, I'm a really great finisher and I'm a really great starter. That's like my jam. The middle, tough for me, right? So hire someone, bring someone in, be aware of that, right? If I go to the gym, it's not putting my shoes on, getting to the gym, it's actually committing 3 or 4 months in, right? So what can you do about that? Don't beat yourself up about it. Cause I mean, I did most of my life when people say, well, you're a really bad finisher or you're really stuck in the middle. You don't get to say that to me. You don't get to say, well, just because you couldn't make your relationship work or any of those things. And that was a lot of what kept me really, really stuck for a really long time, is I didn't want someone to say, well, you suck at relationships. And now I laugh and say, you know what? I did then. That version of me did, because I hadn't done the work to be comfortable. And to be honest, between you and me, ladies, I was in relationships with people I didn't actually like. Like, there was some really funny moments in my healing. And I mean, I apologize to the guys that I was in relationship with. I didn't like a lot of them. I just didn't know how to say, I don't actually like you. I mean, we have a great time and you're a great guy and the kisses are fantastic. I don't actually like you. I don't like myself when I'm with you. And I don't know how to say that it's not you. It is literally me. And I don't know how to communicate that. And so when I was really honest about that, I felt this huge weight lift that I was like, oh, I'm not bad at relationships. I'm bad at communicating when I don't want to spend more time with someone because I don't want to make them uncomfortable, which, if I'm really honest, is why I didn't tell that very first boyfriend that I didn't want to go into that room with him, because I didn't want to make him uncomfortable. And it was like this huge aha moment. So, I think that's a big part of the whole thing for me, is just recognizing it's not in one area, it's in all of them. So when you start to do this healing work, it's pretty crazy.
That's awesome. Yes. Definitely. Just right to where you're at, the trusting the niggle.
Yep.
Good. I'm looking at the comments. There, nothing new has come in yet. Oh, wait, one. Says, yes, relationships with people you don't even like. Why do we do that? No more. Still learning to trust my gut early on when I feel that way.
Yep.
Yes, that is
Yep.
a work in progress.
Right? Not just the masculine men, sometimes it's the girls. You're like, I don't really want to see you again. That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I think trust the niggle is listen to God. I had an accident in Belgium because I didn't listen. I avoided an accident in Colorado because I listened. I pulled off the interstate, then watched an accident through the restaurant window.
Crazy.
So,
Yeah,
yes,
it's true,
um,
right? It's it's there for a reason.
it is. It
Yeah.
is. Um, well, excellent. I'm just kind of looking through here. So I apologize to everyone. I told Candace before we got on that I'm really not feeling great today.
Hey, this
So
is your
I,
best today, and you know what? Thank you for showing up and honoring that. I mean, kudos, right? Like, ladies, seriously, it's tough work to show up when you're not feeling it.
yes. So here we are, and I can feel my energy level being like, okay, it's
You're
winding down.
done.
It's
You're
time for
done.
bed
Let's
now.
call it.
um,
Um,
Oh, good. We've got Kamza is in the house. He's here in Wichita. If anybody's needing digital marketing, he can work with anybody all over. My mom said, "Good interview. You did a great job." Okay, thanks.
yes,
Thanks,
yes.
mom.
Way to go, mom. I love it. Mom, yay, mom.
Yay. Let me drop your Instagram handle there. I thought I had pushed enter already. I will get that book for agreements linked for anybody that is interested. I put your podcast Instagram on there. I will find a
Okay,
website link as well and get that in the replay notes.
okay, cool.
Um, Anything else you want to leave the audience with this evening?
No, I just wanted to, give you a big kudos for the work that you were doing. I think it's so important for those of us that are talking about a lot of this stuff that most people can't or not ready to yet. And I think it's really important, especially when we come together as women, because we're so pitted against each other all the time. And enough is enough, ladies. We don't have to wear our scars like armor. We can be ready to receive the good that is there. And again, if you are currently going through something and the people are not supportive to you and they're not leaning in when you say, hey, I'm not loving myself, or my relationship isn't great, if those people aren't saying, tell me more about that, and they're meeting you there, they're not your people. And it's okay because nature abhors void. And so when you open up that space for the new does rush in, but you have to be in an agreement to receive it, right?
Mm,
Regardless of your faith, that goes all the way through, right? There are good gifts that can and will come your way. But and I'm just reminded of a verse right now: in quietness and confidence is your strength. I think it's in Isaiah somewhere. So just lean into that life really is rigged in your favor. And Rumi said that. And so it doesn't matter where you are coming from. There is good, but a lot of us, we stay stuck. And the word stuck, literally, if you translate it, it means stick. And I remember when I was saying this, I used to say, well, I'm stuck here and I'm stuck here and I can't seem to get out of here at this rut. I'm just stuck.
mm,
We're disempowering ourselves because the word itself has no meaning. It means stick, and stick is something you can grab and break it across your knee. And so you are literally imprisoning yourself versus saying, I'm feeling stuff right now. I don't know how I get out of this. Stay in the I don't know, because the I don't know is closer to I will know, right? Than those sorts of things. And look for that feeling of relief, because when you're starting your healing journey, or even if you're where I am, sometimes I'm like, I don't know which way I should go. Look for that feeling of relief, and when you find it, follow it, because it'll show you the next way and the next way and the next way. And again, that's just that beautiful inner guidance that says, go this way.
oh, lovely. That's perfect to end on. Thank you so much. Um, okay. Well, everybody, thank you so much. And I see that some people are going to share this on their Facebook page. So your message and your story is going to help so many
Thank
people. And so
you.
thank you for all that you do, Candace. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. Be sure to go connect with Candace. Check out her podcast. It's called Create the Ripple. Um, if you got value out of this episode, we just ask that you do just what was shared. Share it with
Yep.
someone you think would benefit from it. Also, leaving a podcast review on Create a Life You Love podcast and or Create the Ripple.
Mhm.
People who do podcasts, it's a
We
free
love
thing that we
those. We
do.
really
We love
do.
reviews.
When all you're staring at is this screen and you're like, is what I'm saying making a difference? Does it matter? My butt's hanging out here naked in the wind, right? Is it making an impact? Yeah. Anyway,
Yes.
thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you. So next week we'll be chatting with Dr. Lee C. Cordell. She is a pleasure-focused, trauma-informed coach and mentor for those who desire to take back command over their brains, bodies, and bank accounts. And so you can find us right here in the Create a Life You Love community, or catch it on your favorite podcasting platform. Same time, same place next Tuesday. All right, goodbye. Good night, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Create a Life You Love podcast. I would love to hear from you about your biggest takeaways. Share them with me on Facebook or Instagram at Create a Life You Love Coaching. If you love this podcast, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. That's it for now. Enjoy the journey.